Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next installment of the Pliant webinars. We're going to be going through some interesting material today as it relates to houses of worship, the HOW market. You'll see on the screen Mark Rifus. Mark's our regional sales manager, and Art Gonzalez. Art is our business development manager. They're going to be presenting to you a good amount of information about the hardware and potential applications. So while Art, if you can slide to the next slide, I think if you've not been on before, I think everybody has been that I can see, but of course, use your control panel. Please feel free to ask questions at any point. We'll try to answer them in real time if possible. If the section's coming up, we may wait a little bit, but we'll try to get to all the questions, and you'll have an opportunity at the end to also ask questions then. And of course, this is being recorded, and it will be available on the website for later viewing if you have anybody that would like to see it. And I think we're ready to hand it off to Art.
Yeah, I'll just briefly add on to what Gary just said, and the presentation here is actually going to be broken up really into two parts. The first part that Mark is going to cover is going to be very product centric, so that you get a full understanding of the products available. There's the MicroCom product line and the CrewCom product line, and he's going to run through all the different products that are involved in both of those lines and a little bit of how they work. Not too much detail, but enough to get some ideas going in your head about how you could use this for a house of worship application. Then we'll move on to actually more specific. We've got at least one real world application where we had a customer that had a problem that he needed to solve, and we'll discuss that. And then we'll show some possible applications for different sizes of house of worship. So based on that, I will click to the next slide, and I'm going to hand it over to Mark, and I will let him take it from here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. So today I'm going to talk about the products as Art had mentioned, and we're going to begin with the MicroCom family of products after we get past there. So we are now looking at the MicroCom M belt pack and the new MicroCom XR belt pack, which is shipping today, shipping this month. In general, the system operates with either a master full duplex mode for the belt pack. The master belt pack sends out the sync. Then there's full duplex, listen only, and then there is a shared mode, which is exclusive to the XR family of products within MicroCom that we'll be discussing later on in future slides, getting into more details. The MicroCom systems, both the XR and the M, are belt pack to belt pack or point-to-point topology. All of them can speak to one another simultaneously, and the communication is sent from pack to pack. There's no base station required. However, the master pack sends out a critical sync signal that synchronizes the entire system, and that determines the overall range of the system. If any of the belt packs fall out of space from the master belt pack, which we're suggesting should be centrally located and stationary if possible, they will lose connection to the system. We also recommend considering that a master belt pack should not be on the most active leader within a group. It could perhaps be put on a spotlight operator or a camera person who's at a tripod. This way you're ensuring that that pack's stationary, and all the other packs will remain within the RF range of that belt pack to be able to pick up its sync signal. The non-master users, if they go out of range, as I mentioned before, they will fall off and will not be communicating to anyone at all. If the master pack goes out of range, everybody will be out of the picture and no communications can be established at that point. The primary way that we set up communications is through groups, and each cluster of people in M and XR systems are groups. So you're going to have up to 4 groups. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself here, excuse me. So a group can be used for cameras, audio, lighting, etc. Any certain quantity of people that have to communicate to one another. The groups cannot communicate to each other. So within a group, you can communicate. If you're in group number 5, as is shown here on the screen, you can all talk to each other, but group number 5 cannot talk to group number 25. So there is no interplay between the groups. It's only within the group. And we can have a maximum of 4 co-located groups, 4 groups that are in the same RF area or in the same building or venue. Starting with the MicroCom family, which has been MicroCom M, which has been out for a little over a year now, has been doing quite well. Again, we have a very economical single channel intercom system. Simple pack-to-pack operation, as I just described. 5 duplex users in this system with an unlimited amount of listen-only users. The button is latching, the talk button is latching, so it offers hand-free operation. It's got a very high dynamic range, which provides us all with better clarity, intelligibility, and articulation of voices in an intercom environment. So this will work well in loud environments. It operates, as all of our products do, in 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz, the ISM bands, 902 to 928, specifically 900, and that's for North America, and across the world in 2.4. It's encrypted digital frequency hopping technology, FHSS. It uses a proprietary hopping sequence. It's very simple to set up. Once you set the groups and the user IDs, you're ready to roll and get the job done. And there's no need for any kind of in-band frequency coordination. You really don't have to worry much about RF with these systems. It's more about setting the groups and the users and going to work. It's small, it's lightweight, it's weather resistant, has a nice 10-hour battery life, operates while charging, so you can use a USB brick charger alongside of it. Comes with a 2-year warranty and a significant amount of accessories that enable you, the end users, to get up and running very quickly. It will also use any kind of off-the-shelf USB charging device. It comes with a small USB cable, so they don't need to buy anything else. It comes with the proper cable and everything they need. Just the charger itself, you can either buy a nice little 5-bay brick charger, or you can use any standard off-the-shelf product. On the front of the unit, you have the antenna, and then you've got the 2 LED lights, which give you talk and charging statuses, information about that. Your power button, your mode button, which gets into your groups, and it allows you to adjust side tone, receiving mode, duplex or listen. You know, if this is going to be a duplex belt pack, it would be set to a certain user number. If it's going to be a listen-only belt pack, it would be set to another user number. Talk button is right here, as I showed before. Your headset connections are on the side here. This terminates to dual mini 3.5 millimeter connections. We'll be showing those later on in slides with our headsets. Your USB chargers over here. Volume buttons are on this side, the left side of the nice LCD screen, and then we're back to the antenna. So ends our little tour of the M. An actual true life range test was done by Art Gonzalez, and inside of this house here was his son with one of the belt packs on, and Art had taken a walk down the block and got to approximately 534 feet from the house through multiple barriers with the 900 megahertz MicroCom M system. With the 2.4 system, he achieved approximately 314 feet. And this is accounting for multiple barriers, body absorption, line of sight issues, and things of that nature. As you saw from these pictures, let me go back to them a little bit. If I can, maybe not. There we go. Push the right button. So on the bottom side here, the 2.4 was 314 feet with a lot of trees in the area and, you know, out of sight of the house, which is pretty impressive for most wireless intercom systems. And now we move on to the XR, which is now shipping as a brand new product for us that we're bringing to the market. It has a dual channel approach, A or B. Simple pack to pack, just like all of the other MicroCom systems are presently, no base station needed. You can get up to 10 full duplex users. And in the extended range mode, you can get up, you use 5 users to get some significant range improvements. We'll be talking about that shortly. Unlimited amount of shared users, and which is, I'll be discussing also in another slide. Unlimited listen only user options, latching / momentary talk button. And you have an in and out of range tones to let you know when you're out of range of the master sync. 3 beeps on the way out, 2 beeps on the way in. And there is a code to be able to join a group on the XR system. So there's another layer of security, promising more security in the system. Button lock feature would allow you to lock all the buttons except for the talk and the volume button. And it's unlicensed, just like our other products in 902.4. And what you don't see or may not be able to see is that 900 is only available in North America, and parts of 900 are able to be used in the Oceania area, New Zealand, Australia. The remainder of the world will be using the 2.4 systems. It's encrypted frequency hopping spread spectrum, proprietary hopping sequence, just like its little brother. Very simple RF setup. Again, no need for any kind of in-band management. It's an IP67 rated device, so it's dust tight and watertight and can be submerged if it's accidentally dropped into water. It has a very, very nice OLED display. This gives you a lot of information. It's very comprehensive. Everything you need to see is there. Has a field replaceable battery that offers 12 hours of battery life, and on a USB connection will take approximately 3.5 hours to charge. With the XR system, we also have an optional drop-in charger that will charge 5 packs and 5 batteries simultaneously. This charging will take about 6.5 hours, so it's something that you're going to want to do overnight, but it will allow you to ensure that everyone will have a fresh battery and a fully charged bell pack the following morning when they get ready to go back to work. Taking a tour of the MicroCom XR, we have the antenna here. The channel buttons are here to go between A or B. Then you have your status and LED lights here to let you know if you're charging and what kind of a state you're in for receiving. The OLED screen I described, the mode button, which allows you to set up all of the groups and user IDs, side tone, mic gain, output level. There's a plethora of things to go in and adjust and make everything happen, as well as the security code to allow you to go in and join a group, as well as your operation mode, which is 10 users or 5 users, and that's signified on the screen by the little 10U in the corner here. This particular belt pack is set up for a 10 user. If you can't see that on your computer, I'll have a clearer shot of that in future slides. Button lock can be done, talk mode, channel, and the USB charger. We have the headset connection at the bottom along with the USB connection. Power button is here to the left of the mode. Your volume buttons are here, and we're back to the antenna on the XR. 10U mode, as I mentioned before, there's a nice little 10U readout here on the OLED display telling you that you're in 10 user mode. You're going to be operating in a normal range of the XR system, which we're experiencing approximately 800 feet with 900 and 450 feet with 2.4 gigahertz. Shared operation, as I mentioned before, is unlimited amount of shared users, and you can have up to 9 duplex users in shared operation, and an unlimited amount of listen-only users. In the 5U mode, you're going to get some extended range, approximately 25% more. You'll get 1,000 feet. You're going to have 5 users, designated here by the little 5U that's circled in the Pliant green circle here. We have shared operation with the XR, of course, with the same settings, and an unlimited amount of shared users, unlimited amount of listen-only users. The M is the master pack, and this pack is generating the synchronized signal for all the other packs to pick up on. Full duplex modes, you have two options to be 5 users, as I mentioned before, 10 users before, and each user number is established. So you have an M, which would be your master, a 01 through 04 users are considered your full duplex 5 users, and it would be 10 users below. Listen only is a similar feature that we have at M, where you can set a bunch of packs to only listen. That's denoted by user L in MicroCom XR. And now with shared mode, who's denoted as user S over here within the Pliant green oval, you can have an unlimited amount of packs that are listening, and only one pack can speak at a time out of any of those packs that are set into shared mode. So they're sharing one of the slots, which knocks down your duplex users to 4 with one shared slot, and then one additional slot of listen-only users. So as you can see, the MicroCom XR system can be expanded quite large for most applications. And here's another real-world experience that Art had with the MicroCom XR system in 10U. So this would be the normal mode, the shortest distance that it could operate in. And he experienced 413 feet with 2.4 gigahertz under the same conditions as the MicroCom M test was. And with the 900 megahertz MicroCom XR, he experienced 816 feet with the same conditions he had before. Now we're going to move on to CrewCom, our top line that we have to offer here for wireless intercom systems. And CrewCom's different than the XR's MicroCom systems. This operates with a control unit as well as a radio transceiver, which for all intents and purposes is the base station that has the RF inside of it. The control unit establishes your CrewNet, the network that everything operates across. There's 2 flavors of control units to choose from, a 2x2 or a 4x4. They are identical to one another except for the amount of audio inputs on the back for connections to intercom systems. Each of the control units will support up to 18 radio packs across all of the bands, 2.4 and 900. And all of our connections on the back for 2-wire and 4-wire are simultaneously available. So as it states here, you have 2-wire plus 4-wire, and that can be utilized to expand your amounts of analog inputs. We have an excellent hybrid in our 2-wire system with auto nulling and echo cancellation. Over here to the right is our LAN connection that allows you to connect a computer up to the CrewCom system utilizing our free CrewWare software, which you can download from our website and get started with. Next to that is the stage announce, next to that is your auxiliary in and out jacks, which are 1/4-inch TS or TRS connections. Then you have your stage announce, which is the male XLR output, mic level. Then you have your 4-wire, 2-wire jack plane. Next to that is your CrewNet connection. There are 2 of them. There's a copper only and a copper or fiber. Then you have your sync in and out, which allows you to synchronize multiple CrewCom systems together. A GPO relay connection, which is fully functional now in our latest firmware update, 1.8.03. On the front, you have your headset monitor jack with your talk button and your volume for that, a comprehensive LCD screen. Your USB connections are over here, which allow you to synchronize pair the bell packs to the system, as well as do firmware updates and load configuration files onto the system from those thumb drives. The radio transceivers for our system, there's 2 models available, 2.4 or CRT 2400 or 900 megahertz, CRT 900. This is the wireless access point into CrewNet. It supports, each of them support up to 6 radio packs. And Art will be showing you in future slides how to put a system together and how that all looks on paper when you start adding radio transceivers to users to control units. You can daisy chain each of our radio transceivers to one another, and it will pass power across CrewNet or PoE between one another. We specify up to 7 radio transceivers in each circuit. They can be powered via the CrewNet power over network, or they can be powered with a local power supply through the DC power jack here, which is sold separately and is required for the fiber connections. The antennas are removable, which would enable you to utilize directional antennas or antenna distribution systems. LED status indicators on the bottom let you know about what's going on inside the box, what you're seeing in transmission and receiving. There are multiple mounting options available, and we include a single mount solution for either wall mounting and or mic stand mounting. And the USB connection, which is on all of our products, is present on this particular device for firmware updates. Our radio packs, which then talk to the radio transceiver to access the system, are available in 2 models, a 2 volume and a 4 volume. Again, inside they are identical to one another, but one has 2 volume and 2 knob buttons, and the other one has 4 volume knobs and 4 buttons. The 2 volume knob belt pack, 2 knob belt pack would enable you to support 2 channels or 2 party lines, and the 4 knob would allow you to support 4 channels or 4 party lines or conversations. Each of them is available in either 2.4 or 900 megahertz. So you need a separate belt pack, a specific belt pack for specific RF ranges. The belt pack itself is very light, it's small, it sounds good with 7K audio, incredibly easy to operate, familiar ergonomic interface that you can hand to any day hire or volunteer or less than technical person, and they would be able to understand how to use this system. The LCD on the top gives you just enough information that you need to do the job, let you know where you're supposed to be and when you're starting to get close to the end of the range and how your battery is. The 2 assignable buttons on the top here, which I'm pointing to with my mouse, can be set up to either be stage announce, trigger a GPO relay, or call. It's a bunch of different functions you can program here at the assignable buttons. Each of the buttons across the top here, your talk buttons, give you access to talk to any of the conferences that are assigned to this belt pack via the user profile. We have the USB port here for pairing, charging, as well as firmware updates, and a very nice spring clip here that allows you to clip this to your belt and get to work with it. Power buttons on the back. Our unit will take either our proprietary lithium polymer batteries, or it'll take AA batteries if you forgot to charge your batteries or have a problem with them. It's IP65 rated, so it'll handle dust and some moisture. It also, with 1.8, is able to be used in our new drop-in charger, which charges 6 packs at a time, along with 6 batteries simultaneously. It'll go from completely dead devices and batteries up to full charge in approximately 4 hours, and the LEDs indicators on the unit give you a nice idea as to where you're at via color codes in the charging process. Our hubs are available in either copper or fiber. They have 8 ports on them, 7 of them. The 8th port on the copper is a copper or fiber port, and then the first port on the fiber hub is either copper or fiber, and the remainder being single mode fiber. Each of these have front and rear LEDs, so you can mount them a couple different ways, either front with the cables out in a standard IT approach, or have the cables going into the back in an audio approach. The free software I referred to before, CrewWare software, is available for download on our website. It enables you to develop the system and build up the configuration file, offers you live control as well as live monitoring, and it is the same software is used for your firmware updates. So if you rent a piece of equipment that is at a lower firmware than your rest of your system is at, you can simply connect that piece of equipment to your computer and do a firmware update from the firmware you're using. And that ends my first portion of the presentation. And now I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Art Gonzalez to pick it up from here. Mr. Gonzalez.
Oh, thanks, Mark. Just a reminder to everybody, if you have any questions, go ahead and type those in. If you want to make a verbal question and don't feel comfortable typing your question in, you can also raise your hand and we can unmute your mics. If you would rather do it that way, that's fine too. Either way is fine. Keep in mind this whole discussion is about a house of worship market, so we're now going to kind of get more into putting together systems. We're going to kind of complete Mark's session on CrewCom, and I'm going to show you how the CrewCom system goes together. And then we're going to show you a real-world CrewCom application, and then we'll show you some applications where MicroCom may work, kind of a small, medium, large, kind of approach it that way in terms of house of worship. And then that'll be it. But anyhow, let's go ahead and jump in directly into the system deployment for CrewCom. And this is basically based on what Mark has just told you about all the different devices. This is how a system gets put together. It'll also answer some of the questions about the numbers in terms of the number of packs in a system, the number of transceivers and so forth, and how they're actually deployed. As Mark mentioned, the control unit is really kind of the heart of the system. It really establishes the CrewNet network. I will remind you, I think Mark mentioned that it is a proprietary network. So this is not an IP-based system. It's not, it doesn't ride on an IP network. It is its own type of network. It is using standard cabling for a standard IP-based network, standard Cat5 and fiber connectivity, but the actual data flowing through those pipes is CrewNet. So anyhow, as Mark mentioned, there is a radio transceiver. This is the link into the system from a wireless standpoint. Every system does require at least one control unit and one radio transceiver. As was mentioned, the control unit supports up to 18 packs. The control unit really determines how many total packs that can be on the system. And then the transceiver determines the number of packs that have wireless access into that transceiver. And in that case, as Mark mentioned as well, you can have up to 6 packs for every transceiver. So in this example, just a simple system that you could put together very quickly. It's just one control unit, one transceiver, and up to 6 radio packs. And once again, as we've said before, this can be either 2.4 or 900 megahertz, depending on where you're operating or what you're trying to do. You can also combine 2.4 and 900. The system doesn't really care. The other thing to mention here is you'll see in our diagram or our drawing, there are actually 2 volume packs and 4 volume packs on the same system. So you don't have to commit to a 2 volume pack or a 4 volume pack. You can actually mix those as you need them. So 6 packs. Let's say I wanted to add more packs to my system at a later time. It's very easy to do. You simply just add on another transceiver. In this case, we're just doing a daisy chain. We're coming out of the loop connector of the first transceiver, going into a second connector to the input of the second connector. So that allows us to connect those 2 together, and it's sitting on that CrewNet network. And now I have a total of up to 12 packs. I can do that one more time. And if I hit the right button, I can do that. You hit the RT, you add another RT, and that'll give you another 6 packs for a total of 18 packs. Now we've maxed out the number of packs that the control unit can support. So really, this is kind of the maximum number of packs that this control unit can support. Now that doesn't mean you can't add any more transceivers to the system. So that's actually something completely different, which we're going to go into using transceivers to create more coverage zones. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I want to extend the coverage of my system, this is kind of taking it back to the 6 users and the 1 transceiver and the 1 control unit. So let's say I want to add some coverage in another location. I don't have to use a hub. I actually could just run a fiber directly to another RT, but for this sake, we're just going out to another hub. and we're going to another location, and we need to have access in the hallway in that other location. And now I can actually, with those 6 radio packs, I can go anywhere between the main stage and the hallway, and I get coverage. If those 2 areas overlap each other, there'll be no breakdown between going from the main stage to the hallway. So as I go from the main stage over to the hallway, it will transition and automatically switch over to the hallway transceiver without any issue. If they're separated by too far, the packs will actually log out of the system and then log back in, but that's to be expected depending on how you set the system up. So let's say if I want to, take that even to the next level, one of the other things you can do is you can add more control units to the system. As I mentioned, the control units establish the number of packs on a system. So if I want to increase the number of packs, I have to add a second control unit. In that case, I would have up to 36 packs, so 18 plus 18, 36. I can do that up to 4 times for a total of 72 packs on the system. Okay, so in this particular example, I also wanted to use the control unit not only to add more packs, but also to give me some I/O access in another location. In this case, let's say it's a church. You have the main part of the church, and then you have, let's say, a multi-purpose room, which is, let's say, for discussion's sake, it's maybe a half a mile away. You can run a fiber, because a fiber you can go up to 10 kilometers or 6 miles. To that other building, and then you can have access to any type of, let's say, wired interface that already existed in that building, and that all becomes part of the system by adding that second control unit. So when I add that second control unit, now I can add more transceivers in that location as well, and now any users can go back and forth between those 2 locations. And also giving you access to that extra I/O that you were looking for. Once again, the hub is optional. The hub really just gives you the ability to add more and more devices to the system. It's not necessarily required because the control unit has 2 ports on it to begin with. Okay, so now that you understand how the actual system is deployed, what I'm going to show you is an actual example of a real-world system that's out there in St. Louis, Missouri. One of our customers called Grace Church. We actually had on yesterday's webinar, we had David, who's the person in the picture here on the right. This is David here. He's the technical manager at Grace Church. He actually was on to answer questions and so forth from us about his system and telling us, the reasons why he decided to go with our systems and so forth. It was a really good conversation. So if you want to watch that, I'll remind you, that recording is actually already up on our webinar website, which has all of our videos. So you can go to the House of Worship one there, and actually you could fast forward past all this we've just covered if you want and go directly to his interview. It was actually really, really good. He did a real good job for us. So anyhow, this particular church called Grace Church in St. Louis, Missouri. This is kind of the floor plan layout of the facility. It's a fairly large facility. The auditorium part, which is where they have their main services, I believe he said that's about a 2,000 plus seat auditorium. So it's a fairly large auditorium. It has 1 level and then a balcony in it. And to give you a little bit of background about where David was coming from when he decided to use our system, I happened to be in the area back when he was actually inquiring with us about our CrewCom system, which was fairly new at the time. And he wanted to do a demo, do a little bit of a heat mapping and site survey to see, make sure he got all the coverage that he needed. So I met up with him, brought in my control unit and 1 transceiver. And I think at the time I had 4 packs, and we did a little bit of a walk test. I basically put the control unit down on a table, actually in the kind of in the front of house position, which is about right here. And that's where they had their ClearCom 2-wire interface as well. So all I did is I just took 1 XLR out of the 2-wire port. By the way, he has a 2x2 control unit. So anyhow, plugged that in to the 2-wire port on the 2-wire intercom. Did something called an auto null, which is, as Mark mentioned, we have a really good hybrid in our control unit that allows us to connect up to 2-wire systems very well with low noise, low echo. Works really, really well. And what the auto null function does is basically goes out, it sends out tones, and it measures the resistance, the capacitance, and the inductance to determine what's the best connection to make in terms of impedance and so forth, and matching all those characteristics. And it really comes down to cable length and the type of cable and everything, but it automatically adjusts for that. We have an auto null, worked very, very well. So I did the demo, plugged it in, hit the auto null, and it worked right away. That, in addition to that, I had already set up my transceiver. We turned on the packs, and we were able to get coverage no problem completely with no other transceivers within that main area, even going outside, even into the back a little bit into the atrium. But covering that main area was no problem whatsoever, and that was his main concern. So they ended up getting one transceiver, one control unit, and 6 packs, because really they needed at that time just coverage in that area. Then COVID hit. Then they had to start doing a lot more streaming, and they actually turned out doing a lot more production. So they actually now need to expand their system. And what they want to do is they have this area over here under the E part called the Foundry. And this is a whole nother worship space in another part of the building. Because it was further than 300 meters away, he had to actually go to a fiber, because I think he said it's about 1,000 feet away. So they're actually, I think right now, this week, running fiber over to this particular foundry area, and they're going to put in another transceiver, and that will actually plug directly in, no hub or anything needed, because he only has the 2 transceivers right now. And they'll just plug that into the fiber connection on the back of the control unit and add that second transceiver in the foundry. Now, of course, he had to buy a separate power supply for that one as well, because we haven't invented power over fiber yet. So he has to power that locally, but fiber connection will work just fine for what he's doing there. Now, you'll also see another transceiver in this atrium area. This is actually for future use. He knows at some point he's going to want to have coverage over here in this area called the atrium, which should be no problem covering that area. The other thing that he wanted to do is for larger services, let's say Christmas or Easter, he wants to be able to combine all of his packs together, because he added 3 more packs to use in the foundry area. He wants to be able to take those packs and bring them over into the main auditorium. He can't do that with his current system. He has to now move that transceiver over into this area so he can get, because our limit is 6 in that area. But that's very easy to do. What he can do for those larger services is just unplug the transceiver here and then plug it in daisy chain into the other transceiver that's already existing there, and he'll be good to go. And with our new firmware version, by the way, he won't even have to repower the system. It's plug and play. So he'll just unplug here in the foundry, plug it in the auditorium, bring his packs over. He will have to change the profiles, which I'll show you that in just a second. But that will allow him to operate. This also, he wants to be able to use these systems simultaneously. Even though it's a single system, we are able to operate these 2 wireless systems independent of each other, and I'll show you how we do that. This was his current configuration before he decided to add on to it. So this is what they originally had bought, and I even have, these are some screenshots of their profiles that actually David had created. And this is a screenshot of their conferences that they had created. And this is what they've been using for the past, year and a half or so. So what they had was they had the 1 control unit, the 1 transceiver, the 6 packs. He created, essentially they're using 2 conferences. So that's a pretty simple operation. They have a service director conference and a video director conference. And they basically, all of their users are 2 volume packs. And most of their users are volunteers. So if you look at this list, you'll see a lot of list of names. You'll see some called camera, or Banks is actually David, his particular pack. But you'll notice a lot of names here. And he actually did a really clever thing. One thing he figured out really quick is he's got a lot of volunteers. So it was easy for him just to build profiles for every individual volunteer that he has. So that way, one service, 1 week, a certain set of volunteers comes in, he'll hand out the packs based on their name and assign those profiles, because you can recall the profile on the pack, and then he'll hand that pack to the user. The profile basically determines how that pack operates. It tells you which channels are going to be on there. It can set mic gains, side tone levels, basically customized for each individual person. Very smart thing to do. So that's the way he set up the system. So that's the way he's set up right now. When he wanted to add to this system, we had 2 things that we had to basically deal with: the addition of new packs in a different area, plus the ability to take those additional packs and bring them back into the main area and use them all together. So this is how we did that. So I first of all built the configuration file. I left his main transceiver, which he originally had on the original configuration. And all I did was I added a fiber connection to the foundry, and that's coming out of the second port. and that's just a direct connection there. And then I added the atrium as a daisy chain into the main transceiver. Now, what that's going to allow him to do is when he's not using this transceiver in the foundry for the larger services, as we mentioned, and he wants to take that over to the main area, he can simply just plug in a copper connection, literally put the transceivers right next to each other if he wants. It could just be a little short cable. And now he can have all 9 of his packs operating in that same location. Now, how do you do that? How do you have it set up to where it's set up as 2 separate systems operating off of technically one system, and then bring those together? Now, the way we did that is what I did is I actually created, let's go to the conferences first. I took his original 2 conferences, the service director and a video director, and since I really at the time didn't know what the functionality was going to be, I just called them Atrium A and Atrium B and Foundry A and Foundry B. So basically what I did is I duplicated conferences for each one of the areas that we showed you in that map. So let's go with the Foundry though. In the Foundry, he now has 2 conferences, Foundry A and Foundry B. And that gives him the ability to operate these 3 packs in this area, because what I did is I also created a Foundry profile. And on those Foundry profiles, they only have access to the Foundry conferences. So in other words, they won't be able to communicate with any of the people with any of these original profiles because they're using these original conferences here. That's how we're setting up the 2 separate systems that could operate at the same time. Now, technically, if he wanted to, he could say, let's say since David is the technical director, and he physically wanted to go from one area to another, he can do one of 2 things. He can actually just while he's walking over, change his profile to a Foundry profile, or we could build another profile that has a common conference. If you wanted to have a common conference between the 2, you could set it up that way. So very smart, and this really just gives you an idea of the flexibility of the CrewCom system, and especially for churches that need to grow at some point, which he had to do very quickly. It really shows you how you can do that very easily with the CrewCom system. So I'm actually going to hand it back over to Mark real quick, and we're going to cover headsets briefly to cover all the different headsets that go with both MicroCom and CrewCom, and then he's going to pass it back to me, and we're going to finish it up with some small, medium, large applications. So Mark, you can go ahead and take over for the headsets.
Thanks, Art. So we're going to talk about some headsets now from Pliant Technologies that we offer for all of our products. And I get control of the PowerPoint. Now it's gone too far, sorry about that. So all of our Pliant Technologies headsets are available with Smart Boom technology, and that enables you to turn the microphone on and off depending upon the position of your boom. All of our headsets are available with either dynamic microphones or condenser microphones. They are terminated to either 4-pin female XLR, which is our standardized termination for all of our CrewCom products. They're available in 5-pin male XLR or unterminated for any kind of special custom applications, or they're available in a dual 3.5 millimeter termination for use with our MicroCom family of products. They also collapse very nicely for easy storage and transportation. In the MicroCom family of products, we have 2 specialty headsets that are available that break out into 4 different models with a feature that I'll talk about in a second. But starting here over to the left, we have a very nice little in-ear boom microphone, kind of like an old Jabra headset that we used to use back with our phones when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And it's also available with a push-to-talk feature here, a very large button that enables you to have a push-to-talk microphone available to you. Over here to the right, we have the lavalier earpiece headset with a curly clear tube type of earbud, similar to what you see in a security application or in some broadcast applications, as well as a very nice lavalier microphone that can be pinned in a good spot to keep it out of the way and not be so evident to people. We're thinking that these 2 headsets here that I'm showing you right now might be good candidates for uses in houses of worship where discretion is important. you don't want to alarm any of your attendees or any of the parishioners. And a headset of this nature might be good for that application. And now I believe I'm back to you, Art.
Yes, that is correct. I will switch back over to me. Thank you. Yeah, as Mark mentioned, there's a lot of different solutions for a lot of different applications for the headsets, and that's one of the other great things about whether it's CrewCom or MicroCom is we're using, especially with the smart boom headsets, using the same technology that we're using on our high-end CrewCom system. It's being used in the MicroCom system, even the MicroCom M. So let's talk a little more specifically about House of Worship. And these are probably some things that you already know, but want to kind of point a few things out and how they relate to both MicroCom and CrewCom. Simplicity is a big thing. As I mentioned when I was talking about the Grace Church example, having a pack that was easy to use. All of the users there, or the majority of them, are volunteer, so they have to be volunteer friendly. You have to understand that not everybody's real technical. They just need to be able to basically turn it on and talk. And that's one of the great things we're doing with both MicroCom and with CrewCom, and making everything very easy to use. The other thing is the versatility. I showed you the versatility of the CrewCom system and how you can get different coverage areas, you can add more users, and so forth and so on. But that also exists even in the MicroCom product. It's very easy to add on more users if you need to. Of course, MicroCom M, you do have limitations, up to 5 full duplex users, but you can add a limited number of listen-only users. With XR, you're maxed out at 10 full duplex. However, you can go to shared mode and you have 9 full duplex and unlimited number of shared or unlimited number of listen only. So there's a lot of options that allow you to grow with the church. The other thing is portability, especially with MicroCom, since it's just one pack, and we even sell cases that you can put these systems into. It allows you to move around. So I know there's a lot of different houses of worship out there now that are doing outdoor services. So if let's say you go to a remote location, a drive-in or something like that, and they do a service, you go out to a big field and do a service, and there's still some production involved in that. You can take your MicroCom system with you very easily. You just take all your packs and you turn them on, and away you go. It's also great for temporary locations, like movie theaters and schools where your church is just starting out and you need to grow. That allows you to very easily take your system and just move it into, while they're building your church, you can move it to there once everything's up and running. So portability is a big thing. The other thing is budget, and the next slide is actually going to speak to the differences in the pricing of the 3 different systems. But of course, budget is always something that a lot of houses of worship are concerned with. So when you're selecting your system, you have to look at your specific application. Number of channels, price, range, all of those different things are very, very important. This kind of gives us an idea of everything we just talked about. On the left, you have MicroCom M, which comes in at about $550, and this is US dollars list price. I know we do have some international users on the webinar, so that's $550 US dollars, and also that is with the headset, an average price of a headset. As Mark showed you, we have a lot of different headsets ranging from $99 US list all the way up to about $350 US list. This is sit somewhere in the middle in terms of the headset. It's an average price for the headsets plus the pack. So per user price on MicroCom M is very affordable. Looks like Mark, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I wanted to show everybody a relative size of each belt pack to one another in live mode, so you get a sense of how they look to each other in relation. And also, if you want a cell phone, this is my 7 Plus Apple cell phone. Give you a size comparison also.
I thought you might have a flip phone to go with that Jabra headset you were talking about. So.
Yeah, let me find that. It's probably tube powered and cold fired.
Right. So anyhow, going on to XR, you're looking at about $920 US list price. And then you step up to the CrewCom system, and you have to remember the CrewCom system does require control units, transceivers, and so forth, but it's about $3,500 US list price per user, and that's based on, in this particular case, of 1 control unit, 1 transceiver, and 6 packs divided by 6, essentially. So we took that system with headsets and divided it by 6. That's where that goes. Since CrewCom is so configurable, actually the larger the system configuration is, the per user price actually goes down. So that's just keep that in mind with CrewCom. So that kind of gives you an idea of where they sit feature-wise as well as price-wise. And that's obviously something that's important to your customers or to anybody out there. So let's take 3 examples. I'm going to show you a small-sized church, a medium-sized church, and a large-sized church. This could be anybody's facility. It's not necessarily what we're showing here. And I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of different sizes and what we would possibly use in those particular environments. So this is a small house of worship. We're talking about 200 seats or less, under 10,000 square feet. So pretty, fairly small facility. However, you still need communications in a lot of those facilities. Sometimes you'll have a couple of camera folks, or you might have an audio guy that needs to talk to a music director or something like that. It could be 2 or 3 people that need to talk to each other. MicroCom M would be great for that. Should be no problems with this size of a facility in terms of coverage. You do have to keep in mind, if you're 900 to 2.4, 900 is going to do better through the walls. It, of course, depends on the construction. If these were all steel walls with steel doors, you're probably not going to be able to go outside of this main sanctuary area. However, in most cases, that's not the case. So they'll probably be able to get some coverage out here in the hall and in the foyer. But that's something to consider. And of course, 2.4 is a little more line of sight. So you have to keep that in mind if you're using 2.4. But construction is a big factor with that. But for this particular application, you should have no issue with MicroCom M. To give you an example, one of the pictures you may have noticed earlier that we used said First Baptist Church Opelika. That's a church that's in our neighboring town here in Auburn called Opelika. And they actually bought a MicroCom system, and they have, I would say it's probably a medium-sized church. It's a little bit bigger, definitely bigger than this church. But they actually have their broadcast center is underneath the main sanctuary, and they were even able to get coverage through the floor to underneath. And this is with MicroCom M, and no problem. Every week they use it. So also the other thing to consider is number of channels. In this case, it could be a simple single channel, everybody talking on one party line. Then that could be a MicroCom M application. On a medium application, you're talking about 10 to 25,000 square feet, somewhere between 200 and 1,000 seat auditorium area. And in this case, we're showing it with MicroCom XR. Now, it could also be used with MicroCom M, but let's say for this particular application, they need more than a single channel. They maybe need a video channel, and they maybe need a production channel. So this allows them to not only operate between 2 channels, but also gives the ability to have 5 packs. If they wanted to expand beyond those 5 packs, they could. Once again, you still have the options of listen only and shared mode with XR. But those are kind of the things to consider when you're either speccing in a system or trying to decide what type of system to get for your facility. And then the large house of worship example, really it's anything above 40,000 square feet or about 1,000 seats. That I gave the example of the Grace Church in St. Louis. That's a fairly large facility. It's 2,000 to 2,500 seats, so it's a pretty large facility. As you saw there was no problem covering with just one transceiver in that main sanctuary area. So I could see a similar thing here where I'm only really showing pack location, but you could put up one transceiver in this main sanctuary and should have no problem covering these 6 packs that are in this area. And of course, if you need more than 2 channels or different conferences for different areas, you can do that all with the CrewCom system. This could also probably be a MicroCom system. It could be an XR system if you wanted. If you only need a couple of channels or a single channel, that could be used here as well. Now, when you get into more advanced operation, you'll notice here I've actually pointed out some usher packs. That gets a little more advanced. And the other thing to consider at this point is the wired connectivity. Currently on MicroCom, we don't have a wired interface. However, we are working on one for the MicroCom XR. Hopefully that'll be coming out relatively soon. But if you need wired connectivity currently, CrewCom is the way to go. And also another option, and the reason I called out the usher in this particular application is you can also buy third-party two-way radio interfaces that would allow to use the what we call call on talk function on one of the packs to be able to, let's say a head usher, to be able to talk to the guys out in the parking lot directing traffic using two-way radios. So there is even interface ability to do even large things like that. In this particular application, you'll notice the multi-purpose area. That could be similar to what we did in the Grace Church example, where they have a completely separate production going on at the same time. So that allows you to do things like that. And of course, budget is a concern here, so you have to keep that in mind. It could be set up as 2 separate XR systems on 2 different groups. So there's a lot of different ways you can go when you're talking about all the different facilities that are out there. So with that, we have come to the end of the presentation, and we haven't gotten any typed in questions yet, not that I see. So this is your last chance to type in a question or to raise your hand, or of course you can always reach out to us at any point. You can send us emails, you can go on our website. In terms of, I didn't mention earlier, but we do have handouts. If you may look on your control panel, you should see a list of handouts, and part of those handouts include not only some of the brochures, but also this particular presentation in a PDF form. So a lot of resources out there. As Mark mentioned, you can download our CrewWare. A lot of different places you can get a lot of information. Of course, we're always here to help out if you need any help as well. So with that, Mark, anything you want to say before we go?
Thanks for stopping by, everyone, and have a good evening.
That's it. All right, guys, thanks for everything, and stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.